Let's see. Yep. Title. Let's see here. Okay. All right. I'm just getting everything set up here, folks. I'm trying to go live on 2 things at the same time. Hopefully it works. All right. Let me check. Check here. Cool. All right. Perfect. What's this? Perfect. Okay. I'm just getting everything set up here, everybody, all right? So give me just a couple minutes to get settled in. Cool. All right. Let me text the coaching team to see if everything is working correctly before we start. Ariel's here. Hey, Ariel. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Good. I'm live streaming right now on 2 platforms. I think we have, we're on not Instagram. We're on Facebook right now, and we're on YouTube. But our usual software with StreamYard isn't playing well with Facebook.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm doing is I'm streaming on one PC on Facebook, and then I'm streaming on my MacBook here for YouTube. Can you do me a favor? Can you check both YouTube and Facebook to see if we're live and good to go?
Yeah,
And if you guys want, feel free to put it in the comments as well. If you guys can see this okay, and let us know where you're from too, if you're inside the stream and you're watching right now. I feel like I'm live on Facebook, but for whatever reason, it's telling me 0 viewers on Facebook. So I don't know if
I liked it so you could see it, but I see you on Facebook.
See it on Facebook. What about, well, I got Dave here from YouTube saying that he can see it on YouTube, which is great, right? Nothing on Facebook though. So seeing 0 viewers on Facebook. What do you see on Facebook?
Let me get back to that.
Hey, Debbie. How's it going? Hey, Joel.
Yeah, I see you on Facebook. It says live. It says the minutes, 3 minutes, 4 seconds now. But maybe we just don't have any viewers on Facebook quite yet.
Okay. So for Facebook, Ariel, does it say how many people are watching or no?
Let me see. It doesn't.
It doesn't? Because on my end it says 0 viewers. So
let me see.
Hey, Jess. How's it going? Jess is in recovery school. It's good to see you. Get something on our Discord.
It says 20 watching on YouTube.
20 watching on YouTube. Hold on. Let me check with Miguel. let me just type in here. Hey, man. We're live on both Facebook and YouTube, but isn't showing any activity.
Monica commented on our Facebook. Hi, Monica.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It just doesn't say there are any viewers, but oh, you know what? There's 2 now.
I'm not seeing it on my end. That is so strange.
That is odd. But yeah, it says that there are 2 viewers now.
Okay, maybe it'll just take time to
her and I
to catch up. All right. Hey, Richard, how's it going? LR Takushi from Switzerland. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right. If you have any things on Facebook, Ariel, like any questions here, you know what I can do? I can pull up Facebook on my phone to get the questions. That'll probably be a smarter thing to do. I love seeing people's wins on the Facebook.
I do too.
Mm-hmm.
Very inspirational.
Oh, Monica is here.
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Oh, Monica's been waiting since Monday, and we're glad that you were able to hop on here and we can get some of your questions answered. Yeah. Very good. Well, it's good to see where you guys are from. Let's go over it here. Let me get my glasses because I'm a little bit of an old man. Here we go. Oh, yeah, here we go. Some glasses action. We got Jolt from Europe. We got Debbie from Massachusetts. We got Jess from Texas. We got LR Takushi from Switzerland. We got Richard from from Fairport, New York. Excellent. All right. Perfect. Well, if you guys have any questions or anything that you would like to share with us, we are more than happy to answer some of those questions. And let's get some good topics going. Let's get some good conversation going because we're on here until 2 o'clock. RL, you got anything planned during the live stream, or are you with me till 2?
I'm with you till 2. I'll be with everyone here.
Cool. Monica says Tarpon Springs. Ooh, close by. Very, very nice. We'll get some questions going as well. I see some questions starting to trickle into the sidebar here. All right. How are you watching me, Ariel? Just through this thing, not through YouTube or anything like that, right?
Oh, it's through the platform that I joined. It's on a web page.
Okay, cool. Very nice. Very good. Cool. All right. Let's talk about some questions here. So we got Jess. I find that once I found out about recovery and started implementing the techniques, my symptoms got more severe. I think my survival brain picked up on everyone else's symptoms and severity. This is very interesting. Now, Jess, this is actually really common. What we see inside the program, especially, is when they first join the program and they start doing the techniques. The thing is, we're teaching ourselves really to approach life in a different way, right? And sometimes in ways that we haven't approached them before. We're teaching ourselves new, healthier habits. We're teaching ourselves to kind of think in different ways, to perceive things in different directions, to respond differently to not only symptoms, but overall, if you zoom out in the general scope of things, to just life in general, right, Jess? And so sometimes by doing that, and I know this sounds crazy, but when you learn to approach life and respond well and build these healthy habits, because of maybe how we created habits in the past, it could feel a little bit foreign to us to practice healthy habits, to practice responding well. And because it can feel foreign and really take us out of our comfort zone, it could legit like trigger a danger response. And because what the brain's doing is it's saying, okay, we're used to responding to life, to symptoms, to just situations in general in a certain way, in the way that we're used to, in the way that we're taught, and in the way that I know how to do it. And then you come into a program like this, and you learn slowly and gather up all the information of like, oh, hold on, that's not how you respond to those symptoms. There's a healthier way to approach these things, right? There's an easier way to approach these things. There's a different perspective. There's a different direction I can take my thoughts and my perceptions, right? And so when you do that, the brain picks up on that and says, we're not used to this, right? We're not used to going in this weird direction. This feels strange. This feels odd. I'm going to go into symptom mode and have a danger response because it's outside of my scope of comfort. And so what we see actually a lot of the times within the program is people who start the program, they learn the new information, and then their body kind of freaks out and their symptoms kind of kick up a little bit. And that could be the fatigue getting worse or the dizziness or the pain or whatever it is for you. And that's just a temporary hump that a lot of people have to go over initially in the beginning, but then overall it kind of evens out. Something similar happened to me as well. And Ariel, I want to get your take on this too. Where when I first joined the program too, and I started learning these things and implementing new habits and approaching my stressors and symptoms in a totally different way, right? My fatigue got worse for like a month or two. But then after that, it started to even out. And it's funny, that's when I started to do the brain retraining, the rewiring, and the responding well to symptoms. So it was like perfectly timed. So there's like no mistake that was the cause of it, right? Started doing things different, approaching my situation differently. My symptoms kicked up. It was only temporary, but it was like my first toll that I had to pay in my journey of recovery. What about you, Ariel? I remember you first starting out and then learning all of these things and, taking your thoughts and your perceptions in a different direction. Did you also have an initial symptom ramp up as well, or not so much?
I did actually. And what I had was, I remember very clearly, I had a symptom ramp up and I managed to respond well and kind of seek the information I was learning. But then I started having old symptoms I hadn't had in years come up. And I started becoming really frightened about it. And, and now we know about, when it comes to rotating symptoms and a sign that, my nervous system in that position was feeling a little threatened. It was saying, this is how I've kept you safe, or at least this is how I feel I've kept you safe for, X amount of time. And now you have this solution in front of you. Is this really going to keep you safe? Do I have to step in and try and protect you more? So me moving forward, it kind of doubled down and it said, no, wait a minute. I don't know if this is safe or not. So for me, just like you said, it did slip away pretty quickly when I was able to kind of affirm to myself, oh, no, wait, I am okay. This is fine. This isn't a threat. Everything's cool, moving forward. And those things did start to slip away. But yeah, it's interesting you bring up that kind of toll. I remember having that thought process when I went through that of like, okay, I guess this is my first real big example of having an opportunity to respond well to. But yeah, I had a ramp up when I first started learning the nervous system information as well. And it actually provided a platform for me to really apply the tools that I was learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, we have quite a few people actually from the program who are currently in the program right now that watch these live streams as well. And they'll probably tell you the same thing. Like when I first started the program, initially my symptoms kicked up when I started doing the brain retraining and rewiring and things like that, right? So it's normal, very, very normal.
Yeah.
Okay. What else we got? Let's shift gears and go over to some Facebook questions because I see we got one from Monica. And I'll hand this one off to you to see if you have any experience with this, Ariel. So Monica
Yeah.
wants to know how to help with her anger, right? She says, I know that's what's going on within my body. She says, I know what's going on within my body, which means she probably understands that it's the nervous system, Ariel. She's just very angry about it going on in her body. So I guess there's a little bit of some acceptance that needs to happen as a first step, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I just have to say that I identify with this. Anger was actually a roadblock for me. It was something that came up with me with symptoms and other things, in recovery. And for me, it was acceptance. And the way that helped me was kind of trying to get out of that more emotional amygdala part of my brain and into that more logical part. So when I would get angry, I'd use facts and say, okay, so I am understanding how this is working. Let me remind myself that this is my nervous system. It's not out to get me, it's trying to protect me. And things like that, where my anger would say things like, this is screwed up. I can't believe I have to deal with this. It's not fair. And start almost planning ahead of time for other times that I would be in the future getting angry. And I'd stop myself and say, maybe I should come back to the present moment and take a look at what's going on here. And once I understand that, kind of sit with that emotion, but then focus on something else so it could pass kind of through me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I just realized, Ariel, I'm reading the comments on Facebook right now, right?
Oh, goodness.
And you know what I noticed in this StreamYard stream here
Mm-hmm.
is that because it's not playing nice with Facebook, I had to stream from Facebook, right?
Yeah.
But this stream is only going to YouTube. I'm realizing I'm asking you to chime in and you're speaking, but it's only going through YouTube. So the folks on Facebook are hearing me ask you to chime in,
And
and
they're like,
then
where is she?
just like, where is she?
Probably think you're crazy, Junior.
Silence, right? There's just silence on it.
Would it be
So
easier
here's what I
for
can
you
do.
would it be easier for you to just do this so it doesn't confuse them, or is there another solution to this?
I have an idea. Let me ask our folks in Facebook. So we have a few. We have Monica, we have Jennifer, and we have Sophie. We have a few in Facebook. Would it be easier if I sent you guys the Facebook Live link in the community, the Facebook community, and you guys can click that and then head on over there, so you guys can hear both Ariel and myself? Um, if so, that'll probably help you give you a more full experience, right? Um, let's do that. Ariel, can you do me a favor?
Yeah, of
Do
course.
you know how to copy the Facebook or the YouTube Live link into the Facebook community? Could you do that
I
for
can
me?
go ahead and do that.
Yeah, cool. That sounds good. All right, guys. Awesome. Thank you, Monica. So do me a favor. When Ariel gives me the okay, I'm going to have you guys refresh your page in Facebook, and then we'll just click that link and we'll all make a little field trip over to YouTube. Okay, we'll spend some time there. In the meantime, if you're part of this YouTube live stream, because this is maybe going to take a minute, go to the bathroom, go pee, make yourself comfortable, grab a blanket, get warm, grab a snack, eat lunch. Let's just chill out and have a good time. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I posted it, Junior. It should be in the comment feed there.
can you post it in the comments, and can you also post it like as a post in the community as well?
Yeah,
Just
let's
like,
do that.
hey
That's a
guys,
great
here's the
idea.
link for our Facebook Live
Yep.
happening right now.
Let's do that.
Sweet. Let me see here. Migrating all the Facebook folks to YouTube. All right, Perfect. So that should help streamline that a little bit easier. Ariel, we got the link up in the community.
I think because I'm not a moderator, I can't just put it as a post, but I will put it. You think
Oh,
I
I
should
can do it. That's totally fine.
under Thriver check-in, maybe?
Yeah, actually, I could probably do it. I can go do it
Okay.
right now. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm going to end the live stream now, guys, and I'm going to post the post in the community, okay, because I'm a moderator. All right, so just keep refreshing your page. Give me like a minute, okay? We'll see you on YouTube.
We got
Cool.
this, you guys.
Okay, awesome. For those of you watching with tech difficulties, you know, it's unpredictable sometimes. This is a great example of how you respond well to a real life stressor. I mean, it's not really that big of a real life stressor. It's just like technology gone wrong on YouTube, but you'd be surprised. Like before I got sick, stuff like this would freak me out. Like I know that sounds really, really like out there, but I'm serious. Like even small stuff like this would like really rile my nervous system up. Believe it or not, Ariel. So
yeah, talk about that anger. Stuff like this would happen, and I'd be like, geez, everything goes wrong. And it's
really
such a relief to be able to just be like, all right, what's the next indicated step? Let's take it.
Exactly. Let's see here. Share. How do I do this? Copy the link. Go to CFS. Oh yeah, there we go. Let me just pull up my thing. I'm gonna type this in really quick. Where's my keyboard? This is the beauties of having a wireless keyboard.
Oh yeah, I have a nice. I like collect keyboards unintentionally. I have like, this is so weird. So I have this one that I use. I love this one. I love the mouse pad that you can kind of touch with your fingers and click on. And I have another one with one of those little dot mouse pads, and I have another one that doesn't have one. Somehow I've ended up with like 4 keyboards, Junior. I'm out of control.
Are you one of those people that like builds keyboards and collects them?
No. I'm not that deep into it.
I actually used to be one of those people. That was one of my hobbies when I was recovering, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm going to have to look into that. I could be that person, Junior.
I'm going to send you some stuff. Maybe you can take a look. All right, everyone. We have successfully migrated over into YouTube. I'm checking the Facebook right now, and it looks like everybody is good to go. Excellent. Let's start with the questions here, since we're all on YouTube right now. Ooh, I like this one by Dave. Dave asks, suffering from visual snow, static does not go away. So I have kind of a list of umbrella symptoms that I call irritant symptoms. And some examples of these irritant symptoms are actually things like depersonalization, derealization, visual snow. What is the ringing in the ears called? I used to say tinnitus. It's actually tinnitus. Apparently somebody taught me to pronounce it the right way. That ringing in the ears, right? So those kind of things fall under the same umbrella of like the ringing in the ears, the visual snow, the derealization, the depersonalization, that off balance feeling as well. The reason why I call those symptoms irritants is mainly because I see people have one thing in common that makes the symptom continue to perpetuate is whenever they experience the symptom, they really, really want it to go away. That's the thing. If this thing would just leave, this thing is so irritating. Because most of the time with these symptoms, at least for the most part, I don't see them really scaring people, right, into thinking something's terribly wrong with their body. It's more so just a really frustrating, annoying thing that's just always constantly there that people usually respond and say, I would rather it not be here. I know it's not really like a thing I should be worried about. I just really would rather it not be here, right? And so I think you guys know where I'm going with this. The response to that would be acknowledging that it's there, which we probably have done already, and then just accepting it and allowing it to be there and just giving it the freedom to allow it to exist, right? And still not letting that stop you from living your life and continuing to choose to live your life even with it there. And over time, slowly, it should just start to go away on its own. That's what I found. I didn't have too much of the visual snow, but I had its like sibling symptom, which is the tinnitus, which is the ringing in the ears. I so desperately wanted that to go away, especially in the beginning. It was so loud. But over time, I stopped, paying it any mind. I just acknowledged that it was there, and I was like, you know what, whatever. It's just gonna be there. It's fine. I accept it. It doesn't really bother me too much anymore. And then over time, as a byproduct of that, it started to go away, right? Did you have any of that? Any visual snow or any of the irritant symptoms under the umbrella that I mentioned, Ariel?
Yes, I actually have experience with all the symptoms you mentioned. Yes, the visual snow was one that really it irked me. And just like you said, it wasn't like, oh gosh, I'm dying or something. It was like, why is this happening again? And I'd find that the more that I would focus on it, the worse it would get. And it turned into a cycle where I'm focusing on the symptom and it's creating the symptom to, to get worse, which I'm focusing on more. So for me, it was about breaking that cycle and just saying, all right, this is going on. I'm not going to change that in this moment. Wish I could, but hey, I can't. So I'm going to try my best just to respond to this in a way that's just like, all right, so it's there. It'll leave at some point. And it's ironic that the more that I just didn't care if it was there, the more it slipped away from me.
Yep, absolutely. Same concept then. You approached it the same way as I did, Ariel, for sure.
But that's a really good name you have for those irritant symptoms because it's so true. Because like even that depersonalization, derealization, would come up and I'd be like, oh, not this again. It wouldn't be like, oh, I can't handle this. It'd be like, oh, come on, you're getting in the way of what I want to do. And that's when I just had to really look at that mindset of just like, okay, well, maybe that's not helping so much. That I am focusing so hard on this that I'm frustrated by this point. Maybe I should just try to lean as close to indifferent as I can.
It's that energy of like so desperately wanting its opposite,
Yeah.
right? So with the ringing of the ear, it's like I so desperately want this to stop. I just want some peace and quiet, right? And it's the same thing with the visual snow. Like I so desperately want this to go away. If it would just go away, I could finally see clearly and I could focus. Same thing with the derealization, depersonalization. It almost gives you like an out-of-body experience, but in the worst way, you know?
Yeah.
So there's probably a little bit more fear attached to those than the tinnitus and the visual snow. But ultimately, the emotional response is probably the same of like, I so desperately want to not experience this, right?
Yeah.
So I can lean into more experiencing its opposite. And the worse that desperation gets, the worse the symptom becomes as a byproduct of that. That's what I've found. So let's see what we got here. Hey, Victoria. How are you, my friend? Let's see here. Oh, we got Viola in the house. Viola, why is your name different? Interesting. Okay, let's see here.
She's versatile.
Versatile. Yeah, that's the word for it. I'm just asking for a new struggling thriver. She has intense flu-like symptoms and has the feeling that she is the only one and not so much others have this intense symptom. Well, Ariel, you've been in the community long enough, and for those of you in the chat who have been in the community for a while, I've been coaching for a little while now. I'll tell you right now, flu-like symptoms are one of the most common things we actually see in the program. You know what's funny and ironic about it is that with flu-like symptoms specifically, like the like the sore throat and the aches and the pains and feeling like you have a fever is that a lot of people with that specific symptom, they always question if they're the only ones who experience that specific symptom. That's the thing I've actually noticed, which I find a little bit ironic because so many people have that symptoms. Actually, one of our most common symptoms. But the number one question we get is like, am I the only one who has this? I had it as well, too,
Yeah.
where I would feel like I'd have a temperature. I'd take my temperature. It was totally fine. It's completely normal. Same thing with the sore throat. I would have a sore throat and some aches and pains too. And that came along with fatigue as well. So absolutely. I hope that helps your friend, Viola. Okay. All right. Let's go to Jolt. Let's see what we got here, Jolt. How you doing, my man? I hope you're doing well. Let's see. If you can walk 3 minutes a couple times every day, so you're walking 3 minutes about 2 times a day, and I didn't get a bigger adjustment period or a bigger flare-up, what should I do? One bigger walk or stick with these more small and consistent ones? For now, Jolt, because the time is so short, I don't want you to practice longer consistency. Now's not the time to build stamina. Now's the time to build consistency in chunks. And this goes for everybody, okay? Instead of shooting for like really long, drawn out periods of activity, like say, for example, if your goal is to walk, I don't know, 20 minutes straight or something like that, you want to do it in smaller chunks consistently as opposed to like doing it in one long go at first. That's what I would always say. It's much, much easier for the nervous system to adapt and build off of consistent chunks as opposed to one long stretch. So let's say your goal is to walk like 20 minutes. I'd actually have that person take 4 or 5 minute walks chunked out throughout the day, right? Instead of just one long 20-minute. Because what I found is that if somebody is like walking 20 minutes and they're trying to extend the amount from like 20 to like 25 or something, and they'll say, I'll walk just one long go, no breaks interrupted for 20. And then to expand my activity, I'll just go one long way and then get to 25, right? And then they'll hit a wall. And then they'll keep trying it again after each adjustment period over and over and over and over, and they'll keep hitting the same wall. And you come to realize the brain doesn't want one long, consistent active activity. It more so wants to see if you know how to break it up in chunks and know how to take some even breaks in between, right? So for you, Joel, what was your question? You had 3-minute walks a couple times a day, and you ask if you could just combine those 3-minute walks into probably like a 6-minute walk, or should you just add another 3-minute walk throughout the day? What I would suggest for you, Jolt, if you're doing 3-minute walks 2 times a day, instead of combining it and doing like one long 6 to 10-minute walk, instead, I would suggest 3 3-minute walks. So we're upgrading now from 2 3-minute walks to 3 3-minute walks. Your nervous system will be much more receptive to that because that follows the consistency done in chunks rule, right? Okay. Hope that makes sense. All right. Oh, this kind of goes back to Jess's question that we were talking about earlier. By the way, Ariel, you like my pants?
I do.
I have Snoopy pants. It's like perfect time for the holidays and everything.
Very festive. I have
I would show you Snoopy, but he's like all the way up here, and I don't want to stand up.
Yeah. I have festive nails, Junior. I have some sparkly red nails.
What's the other side? Is the other side green for Christmas?
Nope. I kept it.
Oh, it's still red?
Yeah, red and sparkly.
I like it. I like that. Okay. And Jess, your initial question, I remember, was that you asked if it was normal to experience a flare up of symptoms when you start in the program and you start doing things different to what you were doing before. And it's actually really normal because it's actually going out of your brain's comfort zone when you do that, right? And so, yeah, absolutely. She said, it makes a lot of sense. I definitely had never been this attentive to myself and my needs before. I can see the nervous system being on alert over this. Absolutely. Right. But yes, it's uncomfortable. Your nervous system's having a danger response because you're eliciting new change, more healthier habits. You're paying more attention to yourself, and you're giving your body and your mind what it needs, and you're learning how to be a little bit more intuitive. It's going through some changes right now. And those changes are going to be a bit uncomfortable, but discomfort doesn't always mean bad. For the most part, especially in recovery, discomfort most of the time actually is a good thing, right? When people ask me about like rotating symptoms and they think it's a bad thing, it's actually not. It's a good thing, right? When people start stripping themselves of their old identities and feeling lost and having to start over and find out who they are, and they can perceive even being lost as a bad thing. It's not. It's actually a good thing. Same thing with symptoms flaring up when you start making new changes and bringing on some more healthier habits. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing as well. So, yeah, I'm glad, Jess, that my answer helped you there. Okay. All right. Let's see here. LR Takushi. I don't know what the LR stands for, man, so I'm just going to call you Takushi. I hope that helps. I just moved, which needs lots of energy. It does, absolutely. Moving requires an enormous amount of energy. I agree. And as a result, I can do way less until my symptoms become hard to manage. Fair. Yeah, that's understandable. Even if, Ariel, even if you and I moved, right?
Yeah.
It's going to take away capacity even for our everyday regular stuff too, because the moving stuff takes priority. So totally get it. It makes sense. And I have trouble finding my new baseline. Any tips for finding baseline? Well, before you can even think about finding your baseline, Takushi, first, I would wait until all the moving stuff settles down, right? Get that taken care of first, okay? And then once that all settles down, then you can go back to your routine that you were doing before. It's a little difficult to determine what baseline is and what's not. I would probably have to have a one-on-one call with you to kind of see where we're at with that. I just don't have enough context about your situation, but a general rule of thumb on how to determine one's baseline is just gradually and gently keep doing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more every day. So it's almost like grading yourself up. I don't really like using that word because it kind of triggers people, and it's a big no-no in the community where we're not really about grading. But you want to gently just continue to increase until you start to feel like you're teasing that line of overwhelm. And once you start hitting kind of that point, that's when you know that's where your limits are, and then you want to pull back. The reason I don't agree with grading too much, that grading exercise and pacing yourself up and continuing to go, is because when people do graded exercise, they'll grade up to a point, right? And then they'll like hit a wall of overwhelm where they're supposed to pull back at that point, take it a little bit easy before they keep going. With graded exercise, these folks will like hit a wall or they'll flare up symptoms teasing the point of overwhelm. And then their coach or whoever is helping them is going to tell them to actually keep going and to ignore their body. As long as they can gently grade themselves, they'll be fine. And so they'll do it and then they'll pay for it because they're not listening to their bodies, right? So that's why I don't agree with like the second half of grading. I do think it's actually it has the right intentions, but it's just approached the wrong way with someone who has like a chronic condition like this, right? So, okay. Yes. Monica is here from the Facebook group to the YouTube, so the migration worked. Ariel, excellent.
She did ask if I play that piano, and I do have to say that I do not play the piano or that piano. This might come to surprise you guys. especially with my black halo I have going on up here. But this is not my room. This is an automated screen behind me.
It's a very convincing and well calculated background for sure.
I've gotten this question though before on checking calls. I've had people say, "No, I have to ask, do you play the piano?" And I'm like, "No, I'll have to find a different picture with something I can do."
Do you play any instrument, Ariel?
I actually played guitar when I was younger. I haven't practiced in quite a while, but I don't currently play any instruments that I say do on a regular basis.
Cool. Very, very cool.
You
All
play
right.
quite a few, don't you, Junior?
Yeah, but I was always a musician ever since I was a little kid.
Mm.
So I play mainly the guitar. I was taught piano at a very young age. So I can play the piano, the drums. I haven't played drums in a long time, but mainly my focus right now is just producing music through the DAW. The DAW is just it's another word for music production software that we use, as well as and things relating to it too. Like if you can play the guitar, you can play the ukulele. It's pretty straightforward to play that. You can play the drums. You probably have a good knack for the bongos and the djembe and all those things, right? So yeah, music really helped me throughout my recovery for sure. Let's talk to why is this not working? Oh, I'm trying to use my computer mouse. I'm on my laptop. Hold on, let me trackpad here. We got Hannah. I can't deal with how weak and shaky my muscles feel, like they're not getting enough oxygen. I have no idea how to deal with this. Okay, that's a great question. Usually, when somebody comes up to me as a coach and tells me, Junior, I'm either having a really hard time dealing with a symptom, I don't know how to respond well to the symptom, or I don't know how to deal with the symptom, the first thing that you want to, or the first thing that I identify with this person when they communicate with me that keyword phrase, I don't know how to deal with, or I don't know how to handle or respond to blank, 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 I automatically go to the initial thinking of this person was never taught how to approach and perceive said sensation or feeling or emotion in a healthy way, right? I always come to that conclusion for people, and for the most part, it's correct. And so, if we're talking about Hannah's question here, she says, I can't deal with. So, I reframe that as a coach. And the question is more so, I was either probably never taught, or I don't know how to healthily approach. And what do we have? Weak and shaky muscles. So the essence of weak and shaky muscles, the root of that, I would say, overall, just generally, is weakness.
Yeah.
Right? The idea of weakness, the concept of weakness. So the question reads, I can't deal with how weak and shaky my muscles feel. Right? That's the surface level of the question. As a coach, we're taught to interpret that a little bit differently. As a coach, what I read, how it's translated in coach mode is, Junior, I was either never taught how to approach this in a healthy way, or I don't know how to change my perception or my relationship around the concept of weakness, right? And so that's how I would approach it as a coach. And so you kind of have to go into it a little bit of a layer deeper. If somebody doesn't know how to approach weakness in a healthy way, if someone doesn't know how to respond to weakness or shakiness in a healthy way, that means they've been taught its opposite to an extreme, right? And so what does that mean? Someone who doesn't know how to approach weakness in a healthy way is probably somebody who has been taught either directly or indirectly, or led their lives in a way where they constantly always had to be strong, right? Not really showing a lot of vulnerability, right? Not being able to put their walls down, always giving off this persona of strength, right? Whether that's mentally or physically, always pushing through and being tough and strong, right? So then, because they've developed such an extreme perception of what it means to be strong, they have that other swinging perception to the other extreme of, I only taught myself how to be strong or to put on this persona or this personality of strength. So now when I experience a symptom like weakness, I don't know how to deal with it, because the only way I perceive weakness is something that's all bad, right? There's no pros to being weak. There's no pros to letting my walls down. There's nothing good about being vulnerable at all. And so what I have to do is I have to teach these individuals, okay, if we're not responding well to weakness, number one, we have to change how we perceive and define weakness, is that it's actually not an all bad thing to begin with. Um, there are pros of being vulnerable, right? There are pros of putting your walls down. There are pros to allowing yourself to accept and lean into that weakness and feeling okay with not having to be strong all the time, and teaching that individual that the healthy response to that would be to eventually come to the acceptance that you don't have to be strong all the time. That there are moments where being vulnerable can, um, you know, gather a lot of benefits at the end of the day. Very difficult for somebody who's put on that tough, strong persona. But then we gotta ask ourselves, why did we put that tough and strong persona on all the time in the first place? It sounds like a defense mechanism to me. And if somebody's constantly living within a defense mechanism, it sounds like you've been constantly living in danger since before maybe even the symptoms existed, which then goes back to the root of it's probably the nervous system, right? Because the nervous system's in charge of all of that stuff. So that's actually what I perceive as a coach to be the core of the question. The surface level of the question is, I can't deal with how weak and shaky my muscles feel. This is a person that needs to be taught how to respond well and how to perceive weakness differently, vulnerability differently, allowing that person to put their walls down a little bit more. And you got to do that slowly, and you got to do that gently. If you try to get someone who's built a persona of being big, strong, and tough their whole life and get them to be vulnerable, they're going to have a danger response. That's the thing. You got to do it small little increments to where their nervous system is a little bit more receptive, right? So you can move them along much more slowly, much more gradually. I hope that makes sense. What do you think, Ariel? You picking up what I'm putting down?
I'm picking it up, and I will say that this was, I'd say, one of my kryptonite symptoms, where I would get muscle weakness and issues when I was driving. I'd be drinking water and just drop a cup down the front of me. This happened a lot when I was showering, and everything you just mentioned, I absolutely identified with while I was in recovery. But entering recovery and the content in CFS recovery and joining the system, it gave me permission to rest. And that's something that really helped me with this, is when I was, say, for instance, in the shower, and I would be dealing with this weakness in my muscles, I would get frustrated and I would want to push through it. I'd say, I'm strong. I'm not dealing with this anymore. This is stupid. I have this symptom. And I had to learn how to say, I'm going to take a break. And that's okay. My mind would, like you said, it would come in and it would say things to me like, you're weak. Who has to deal with this? How old are you? Things like that. And I would have to come back with some logic and say, no, I just need a rest. This is okay. It's all right that I'm feeling this way. It's even okay that I'm feeling weak in this moment, but this will pass. And the more that I was able to address it as such and give myself the actual permission to take breaks, take a rest, and, even to feel weak in that moment, the better that it got for me. So in the moment, that's how I address that. But I totally agree with everything that you're saying.
Allowing yourself to feel weak in that moment, really a game changer for some people who could be listening to this. Because the moment that muscle weakness, that shakiness, that instability kicks in, Uh-oh, I feel weak. That's
Yeah.
not a good thing. I don't do that. I'm not someone that feels weak. You gotta start learning slowly.
You learn
Right?
over time too, and allowing yourself to be weak in that moment. Allow yourself to have the time to show yourself that you're quite strong. Change that perception on what weakness and strength looks like. It's not always pushing through in the moment. Sometimes it's playing that long game and saying, okay, I feel weak in this moment, but long term, I'm building strength. So that's something that I don't know that I kept in mind or was conscious of at that time, but looking back, I can see that quite clearly.
You know what the irony of it is that for most of us, we teach ourselves to put on this mask of strength and power and to be so strong and to never be vulnerable. Um, when you finally allow yourself to feel weak sometimes and vulnerable and understand that it's okay and that you're going to have moments in life like that, you're taking your power back,
Yeah.
ironically, right? When you allow yourself to be a victim of the weakness, you're actually giving your power away by not responding well to the weakness, right? And it can get confusing too, Ariel, because you got to think of it like this. We have to put ourselves in a thriver's shoes, right? Let's say you're dealing with weakness and a coach tells you to respond well to the weakness. That could very easily be misinterpreted as I need to respond to the weakness with strength, right? Instead of acceptance and allowing myself to be okay with that weakness. I don't blame these folks for
Yeah.
for automatically doing that if we're told that and we don't give them enough detailed context as coaches. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Monica says we are on the big screen. Very excellent. Let's see here. We got another one. Does Ariel play that piano? Let's see here. All right, we got Caleb. What do super mild people do? I built up to running 10 miles a week. Do I just slowly build up my exercise capacity now? Also, my resting heart rate is up 15 beats per minute since I got COVID. Okay, well, this go away for months. You want to speak about the heart rate thing, Ariel, and why we don't track in the program?
Yeah, I would say one thing that's definitely a suggestion is to not track the heart rate. We don't want to be tracking these things because it just takes that magnifying glass out. And when we take that magnifying glass out and put it on symptoms and put it on, what these numbers represent, that sends a huge danger signal to our nervous system saying, I have something to keep an eye on. I'm in danger, and as a result, it'll keep going up and knowing that in the moment, okay, I can feel these symptoms. I can feel it going up a little bit, but I'm okay, and learning that that can happen and I can be okay. Ironically, it starts to go down, so I would definitely first step, stop tracking that stuff, and just um, trust the process of your body that you'll know when to stop or you'll know when to pull back. I mean, if the overwhelm or things get to a point where you just can't respond well, start pulling back. But until then, you're good to go. And at this stage, I think it has a lot to do with mindset, and that's one of those mind shifts that I had to have in my recovery. But yeah, just relying on that intuition with yourself in that moment instead of trying to predict things, to anticipate things, to plan things. I looked at tracking these types of things as planning APs. That's how I looked at it, because I mean, let's be honest, like I couldn't look at that and just think, oh, this is me in this moment. I should rest. It would be, oh, this is me in this moment. If I continue, it's going to turn into this. Maybe if I pull back, it'll turn into this. Let's wait until it hits this number. If it goes over this number, I'm going to the hospital, so on and so forth, where it could be as simple as, all right, so if I'm able to manage, I'm going to keep going. And if I'm not able to manage, I'm going to pull back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I love it, Ariel. And I mean, you hit the nail right on the head here. I need you to gently keep going, Caleb. That's the thing. Gently, slowly, and build up. If you start getting to a place where you tease that line of overwhelm, pull back a little bit. Take it easy, right? But don't do nothing when you pull back and rest. Your capacity is much too high to be doing nothing on your rest days, right? There is a window of tolerance, and you can fall out of that by overdoing, but also over resting.
Mm-hmm.
as well. All right, Caleb. All right. Excellent. And I did it again with the mouse. Hold on.
Repetition's key, Junior.
I know. We got Tony in the house. How do you start to trust your body again after having health anxiety? Okay, so I can speak on this, right? Here's how I kind of approach people with health anxiety. People with health anxiety, for the most part, that I coach, or who are under my list of people that I work with inside the program, I have a general rule of thumb for those individuals. And it's that when somebody's mind is in an anxious place or in a logical place, I don't really base how I coach them by what they say, because they're not really in a logical place. They're not really thinking from the executive parts of their brain, right? Usually when someone's in an anxious state, they'll say and do whatever. That's the thing. They'll tell me they're responding well. They'll tell me they believe 100% it's the nervous system. They'll do all of those things, right? But they'll keep going to the emergency room over and over and over and over again. And how do I know this? It's because I was that person as well. It takes one to know one, right? I can see health anxiety in somebody very quickly because I've been that person with health anxiety. I've at one point in my my journey, I had to have gone to the ER maybe 40 times in the span of a year. I had to have. I met my out of pocket for my insurance real fast. I remember. So my general rule of thumb for when I coach folks who have health anxiety is, number one, allowing them to believe more and more and more that there's actually nothing wrong with their bodies. Their bodies are okay. Their symptoms are just a byproduct of their nervous system, and they don't have to keep going to the doctors, right? And first and foremost, and this is for everybody as well, go to the doctors first, right? Get your tests, get everything cleared out, make sure everything's all right, make sure that there's actually nothing wrong with you. And then after that, this is the most important part, is when they tell you to, when they tell you that there's nothing wrong with you, believe them. That's the thing, right? When I see someone going to the emergency room week after week after week after week after week after week, doctors start to notice that stuff, right? Because when you go, you have history with them. It's in your chart. And so if somebody comes up to me, and says, Junior, I 100% believe it's the nervous system. I know there's actually nothing wrong with me. This, and that. But they keep going to the emergency room every single week, or they keep seeing doctors every single week. That's why my rule of thumb in coaching stands, of like, you say one thing. I'm not going off of what you say. I'm going off of what I see. I'm going off of the actions that you take. So, Tony, take a look at your actions, within maybe the previous year. If you're coming on these calls, which I've seen you on these calls for a while, right? And you know that we teach that your symptoms are coming from the nervous system. Do you believe it? Or what are your actions exemplifying? Think about what you have physically done in terms of actions. Are you continuing to seek reassurance through, constantly going to the emergency room, having them tell you that there's nothing wrong with you, but then you come back onto these calls and say, well, I fully believe it's my nervous system. What do your actions exemplify, right? So that's where you can start, is number one, getting cleared, going to the doctor, going to the emergency room if you really feel like you need to, get all those things checked out, see specialists, get all that stuff checked out, right? And if they tell you nothing's wrong with you, or if they tell you, yeah, you might have a little thing, but it's not enough to prompt this level of symptoms that you're having, believe them, right? That's step one, is actually believing them. And then step two, shifting that perspective from an external and directing that energy into an internal, right? This is actually part of the week 1 homework that we do in the program, where we awaken your awareness. The homework assignment is literally called Reawakening Your Awareness, where we have you internally deep dive and say, okay, I've gotten all the tests, I've gotten all the scans, I've seen all the specialists, everything has come back clear. I'm still having this level of symptoms. It's a little bit difficult to believe still 100% that this is my nervous system, but maybe let's redirect my energy internally. And let me take a little bit of a dive into maybe some of the things that I might be unconsciously doing in terms of my behavior, my perceptions, how I'm responding to things, and how I'm looking at things, and seeing how there could be a very real possibility that I'm also playing a huge part in why my symptoms continue to perpetuate themselves, right? And so we have people write down all of those things, and mind shift after mind shift after mind shift that people start to begin to have and say, okay, I am starting to gain an understanding of what's actually taking place now, right? I'm starting to see that I might actually play a part in why my symptoms are beginning to continue. And looking back in my previous history, whilst I said that I 100% believed in my nervous system, my physical actions in terms of what I chose to do when I felt symptoms said differently to the things that I was saying, right? And so there comes a point where you have to accept that, no, I don't 100% believe it's my nervous system. I've been saying that, but I've been going to the doctors. I've been seeking reassurance. I've been kind of low-key freaking out. Like, I do have to take a little bit of accountability. I have to probably jot down and do a little bit of homework, focusing on the part I play in the perpetuation of my own condition, right? And I really probably do have to step it up and change some of these things that need to be changed in myself if I want a better future for my life, and taking accountability and responsibility for that, right? But to sum it all up, how do you trust your body again after having health anxiety, right? Well, when it comes to having health anxiety, um, most of the time that health anxiety comes from I 100 don't I don't 100% believe that the case is that this is fully coming from my nervous system, and I'm having a hard time coming to grips with that, right? You do that through consistency and proof. So you start doing the work, you start working on yourself, your behaviors, your responses. As a byproduct of that, over the course of a few months, your nervous system should regulate and even out, and then your symptoms should start going down. And then you'll see a trend of like, oh, I see, I understand how this works, right? And then through consistent, you'll get more wins, and you'll start feeling better and better and better, and have more successes there. And then with that, the belief starts to build, right? You don't need 100% belief in the beginning. You need a little bit though, in order to get started, right? You need some of that oomph to get started there. But that's how I would build upon that. I know that was a mouthful, but Ariel, you want to touch on this one too? Did you have a lot of health anxiety as well?
I did. I'd say by the time I got to kind of, my recovery journey, I was just, I was just completely perplexed because I felt like I understood. I even felt like I understood nervous system work from studying it for years. And I still just didn't understand how to get from point A to B to C. And it really drove me kind of wild, and I think it's interesting you brought up that assignment, because I was thinking of the evidence of recovery assignment, which is another one within Platinum that we have, because we're collecting this evidence that we're recovering in these wins, and it comes with proof. And you mentioned that it takes proof. And I know for me, it took being willing to move forward without having full belief that it was a nervous system, seeking that as a solution, but then building those wins and starting to realize, oh, when I address this as a nervous system issue, I see improvement, and that is what gave me the understanding that, okay, that's what this is. This isn't something else. And of course, I had my tests and scans done. And for me, I ended up coming to the conclusion 100% it was my nervous system. But it wasn't like that initially. I initially had doubts. I had, reservations, but as I started building that belief that this is my nervous system and I can heal, that is how I started to trust my body again, and I have to be honest, it's not something that I had to consciously focus on. It's something that came naturally with the process of recovering. So this is something where, I come to realize at some point, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about what's going on with my body in months, or I haven't, I remember at one point I had doctors call me and say, hey, haven't seen you for a few months. You okay? You want to come in for a checkup? No, thanks. I'm okay. Bye. And it dawned on me, oh, I haven't even really considered that, so it kind of happened naturally, organically with the process of recovering. So it wasn't something I had to focus on, but if I really look at it, it was definitely from the momentum building from, making improvements from that belief system.
Absolutely. You know what was bad, Ariel? You got health anxiety when you go to the emergency room and the people at the front desk recognize your face.
That is
And the
exactly my
doctors there that work regularly, because they rotate. Those doctors in the ER, they rotate, and they know who you are because you've seen them before. That's how you know it's
them
bad.
too. And you'll start to anticipate, oh, maybe this doctor will be here. Oh, that one's nice. Oh, I don't like that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And they'll walk. Oh my God. I got to a point where they would walk in, the nurses, the doctors. Hey, Junior, how's it going? Good, good. Can you just, check my blood? Can you just make sure everything's okay? I feel like I'm dying. And they'd be like, yeah, give me your arm, right? Because they have to do it. That's the thing, right? Yeah, I'm not proud to say I did that, but when you're really in that state of fear, right? There's got to be something that they're missing, that they're just not finding in me. I got to have some kind of thing going on that they just probably haven't found, and hopefully a new doctor that has just interned there, who's hopefully a genius, will find it in me, and they'll try something different with the blood work, and hopefully this time they'll get it right. That was my thinking. I have empathy for folks like that. I don't try to tear those people down, because I was that person at one point. But looking back now, I realized how wild that time in my life was. I was so scared, right? So definitely a thing. Hey, look, Mary Carmen's in the house. Okay, let's see here. We have, oh my God, is in the chat. And he says, or she says, this doesn't make sense. I ignored it for ages and still had excruciating pain, fatigue, and feelings of severe flu. Well, yeah, absolutely. It's going to stick around because you ignored it. That's the thing, right? The first lesson in redirecting and rewiring your brain is we teach you guys to not ignore your symptoms, your experiences, your emotions, the things that you're going through. That's like step 0, right? Is that you actually want to teach your brain to acknowledge, not to ignore. The brain and the autonomic nervous system, and mainly the nervous system, is a feedback mechanism. What is feedback? Feedback is a form of communication, correct? So if we look at it logically, if the nervous system is a feedback mechanism, which it is, and feedback is a form of communication, if someone is trying to communicate to you, what is another word for that if we think of that logically? It means someone is trying to talk to you and get their point across to you. That's what that means. Feedback means communication. Communication means talking. Talking involves having a conversation. And in order for two entities to have a conversation, it needs to start with acknowledgement that you are listening to what the other person is trying to say, right? If the nervous system is trying to give you feedback and communicate with you, you cannot have a conversation with it and hear out what it's trying to tell you if you ignore it, right? That's not how a conversation works. You have to first acknowledge that someone or something is trying to speak to me, and I should probably try to acknowledge that it's trying to speak to me in the first place. So, no, oh my God, we don't ignore here, right? We actually promote acknowledging that something is trying to communicate with us. We're trying to acknowledge the symptoms. So when you feel the pain, the fatigue, the flu, we're not pretending like it doesn't exist, right? We're actually acknowledging first and foremost that it does exist. And then we can work on, after we acknowledge it, telling our brain and our nervous system that, no, this is not the direction that we want to go, and then redirecting into a different direction. But it first starts with acknowledging and, telling your nervous system, I hear you, I know you exist. When you ignore, that's like skipping step 0. That's like the first step, right? We don't ignore here. Okay, we acknowledge. That's really important. Hope that makes sense.
And I think that something that's important here too is intention. If acknowledgement is kind of like, the foundation, I think that the building blocks have to be intention. And my intention on redirecting my attention isn't to ignore, it's to respond well, right? It's to respond in a way that's neutral or indifferent and really sending safety signals to my nervous system in that state. So it's important to know the difference between that and know that if my intention is, okay, I'm going to acknowledge, but then I'm going to redirect so that I can respond well. I'm not redirecting so that I can ignore or kind of hope it just goes away on its own. It's really so that I can, build in the correct direction for my nervous system. Just wanted to mention.
Thank you, Ariel. I appreciate that. We got, you know what? You remember Tony's question where he talks about eliminating health anxiety and building more trust in the body? Mm-hmm. Viola had a great comment towards this. She told Tony, look at how much your body is doing right, where you can trust breathing, heartbeat, and every one of the millions of cells doing their job. You're still alive, so they work. So much is going on behind the scenes that we don't even realize, and that's so true. It's so true, Viola. So thank you very much for acting as a counterbalance to Tony's question. I feel like he really needed that. Okay. You want to do this one, Ariel? Let's see.
Sure. It says, hi. Jane, let me see. Let me make this larger. Jane Marcella says, hi. Sometimes intense inner child emotions overwhelm me. How to deal with it? I try to let them be, journal, but not to stay too long in them. But I doubt myself that I'm doing something wrong. And I relate to this. I had this happen quite frequently at some stages in my recovery. And for me, the way to deal with this is to just know that those emotions are going to be there sometimes. And I have to give them space to kind of express themselves, right? So it's that intention again of saying, yeah, I'm going to journal about this. Is my intention to squash down that feeling, or is it to help express that feeling? And you're totally right with that kind of balance of this feeling coming up, but not necessarily sitting in it. I had to really realize that processing and dealing with emotions didn't mean me just sitting there feeling them and thinking about how I'm processing them and feeling them. I can have an emotion come up and still, do active forms of rest or go ahead and acknowledge it, let it be, but carry on with my day at the same time.
Very awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Ariel. I appreciate that. We can hide that. Oh, Victoria. She's got to go. She's hopping on to the fundamentals call. If you guys don't know what a fundamentals call is, within the program, we have 2 different types of calls. We have a fundamentals call for people who are just starting out, people who are a little bit lower capacity. And then we have something else called the integrations call for people who are a little bit more active. These are folks who can work, exercise, travel to a certain degree, socialize. Because with recovery, there's 2 actually different approaches. When you're a little bit less functional and you're just starting off, rest will actually make you a lot better. When you're a little bit higher in the stages and you're a little bit more functional, rest will actually do you more harm than it does you any good, to be honest. So the approach flips. So that's why we have 2 different calls for 2 different folks at different stages in their recovery. And the fundamentals call is the one where it's a little bit of a lower capacity, people who are starting off and people who are just learning the fundamentals as well. Okay, so Victoria is headed over there after this live stream, because this live stream is going to end in about 45 minutes. Ariel and myself are probably going to head over there as well, or at least I will. Are you going, Ariel?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll hop on.
Cool, man. All right. Okay, looks like we got a follow-up question for you, Ariel. It says, Yuval asks, what do you mean by directing without ignoring, like practically how to do it? What does that look like when you have a 9-degree headache, for example? So we can use a real-life example of the headache here.
Yeah, well, I'll address the first part of meaning directing without ignoring is exactly what Junior mentioned, which is acknowledgement, right? It's
Yeah.
one thing. It's one thing just to say, "Oh, this hurts. I'm ignoring this. I'm going to listen to something, or I'm just going to sink my head in the pillow and hope I fall asleep." Been there, but acknowledgement is when you say, "Okay, this is what's going on. This is my nervous system. It's trying to protect me. Am I going to be able to, with a 9-degree headache, be able to say, "Oh, this is just my nervous system. I'm okay with this"? Maybe not. But what you can do is say, "This is my nervous system. I acknowledge that. I know this is going to pass. It's trying to keep me safe, and now I'm going to do what I can to gently try to redirect myself and my attention so that it's easier for me to respond well." And that's really whatever's within your capacity. If you're able to, in that position, listen to something calming, soothing, funny, that's great. I know for me, if I had a very strong headache, it would be putting a blanket over me and feeling that kind of soft material, wearing comfortable clothing, trying to think of, some of the, it would accompany racing thoughts. I would think of those as going to clouds and passing and really putting myself into kind of a relaxing state of being. But, that acknowledgement as opposed to ignoring is really important in this process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ariel. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was watching you as you were speaking, and your background does look real. I
Oh,
think it's the
really?
lighting. I think it's gotta be the lighting. It's gotta be.
Well, that's good to know.
You all says thank you, by the way. Let's see here. Yeah, Creo. What can I do as my room gets too narrow, but I still can't go outside? What would be training for my nervous system? It's a little vague, man. Uh, I'm gonna need a little more context on that. All right. So if you can just give me a little bit more detail, I really don't have much to work with in terms of this question. Okay. So Ariel, let me call on you. I'm just gonna ask you to speak for
Yeah.
just a little bit. So you just got done. Um, was it today with your graduating class?
Yes.
Right.
Yep. It was
So
actually right before this live. We had a graduation for our most recent platinum thrivers.
yeah, and so they joined the program was was being led by you for the first 4 weeks about the fundamental information, right?
Mhm.
Now, obviously, due to privacy for them, you don't have to mention their names. But if you would like to share some examples of their stories and just some of the progress that they made from starting the program up into what they're able to do now, and it doesn't have to be even just physical progress; it could just be mind shifts and awareness. If you want to kind of go down the line of each person, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of, thrivers within platinum that started out with admittedly very, very black and white thinking of all or nothing. This has to be kind of my way or 100% your way, or if this doesn't go exactly as planned, then I don't know if I can deal with this, to really, gaining emotional, physical, and cognitive capacity from being, bedridden, unable to even really get up a whole lot, to being able to sit up with their feet on the floor, to listen to music, bounce around dancing while doing so, and to have a mind shift that says, maybe when I get these black and white tendencies that I'm now aware of, maybe I can gray it out a little bit and find that middle ground that really sends that signal to my nervous system that I'm safe. So when my mind tells me, for instance, I'd like to get up and go for a walk down the hall that I haven't done in quite a bit of time, maybe instead I'll sit up and put my feet on the ground and see how that feels, as opposed to getting up and doing that as a gentle step in the right direction. That's one example. Another one is, I think of, a thriver who was very doubtful of, well, maybe not very, but was at least a little doubtful of this being entirely the nervous system kind of moving forward, but which is relatable, but doubtful, thinking, I don't know if I'll be able to make progress. Will I be able to go on these long walks that I used to? never mind even doing the winter sports that I used to do. And this person went skiing today. Came on the call and said, you know what? I went skiing down hills. That's absolutely amazing. Did that happen overnight? No, there were progressive steps up until that point, but that absolutely happened. And, people being able to hold conversations for hours with their children that they hadn't been able to even see or talk to for more than a few minutes at a time. Those are the types of things that I have the absolute pleasure of being able to watch happen with people, or even being able to go from a position where you're, kind of messaging every day with the coaches, asking for reassurance. Is this okay? Is that okay? Is this normal? Is that normal? Which, again, this is normal to do, but going from that position to checking in once a week, hey, here's what I'm doing, instead of, hey, what do you think I should be doing with this, and that? Here's what I'm doing. Let me know if you have any feedback, coach. That's such a cool thing to see, is that confidence building with people, and seeing people get to a position where they're in a group where they have a ton of patient advocates, for instance, and they're relying on, this advocate says this, I'll do that. This one says this, I'll do that, to saying, hey, wait a minute, what do I want? Somebody who can say, first and foremost, what do I want to do in this situation? Now I will take your input, taking their power back, So as you can see, there are wins and gains from all different kinds of perspectives here to, not being able to hold a pen or a pencil without shaking with incredible fear, to daily journaling of wins and gratitude lists. Those are the things that most recently have come up as wins for people, and it's truly inspiring.
Incredible. And I want to ask you a little bit, all right, what do you think are some main takeaways that you could take from that group? Because as much as they learn from us, we also learn from them as well. So what do you think?
It's interesting. I was thinking about this before this graduation call, and I was thinking,
Really?
I wouldn't say it's a huge group, but quite an interesting group of people in very different places with different personalities, coming from different backgrounds. And I think what I could take from that call is the perseverance that we come to this position with. When we come into these positions where we have this black and white thinking, where we have these behaviors, we have these roadblocks in front of us, being able to look at those, not necessarily as a challenge, but as something to work through and learn from. What I've really gathered from this particular group of people is, the ability to have persistence and almost grit, and be able to say, okay, this is a challenge in my path, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to genuinely learn how to respond well, and gray things out and look at things in a way that serves me and serves those around me, as opposed to what makes me feel comfortable in the moment, what benefits me long term. That's kind of the vibe I've gotten from this group that I've worked with most recently. And you're so right. It's, people will come on and say, oh, I'm learning so much. Oh, that was excellent advice. Or this other group member said this or said that. And I'm just thinking, you have no idea how much I'm gaining from this. Not that that's my goal, but it's amazing, even the life lessons that we learn from helping people to this extent.
Absolutely. I think it's genuinely a privilege to be able to work with this very underrepresented community, right? So it's incredible work that we're doing, and Ariel, you should be very proud of yourself, right, as well, for helping lead these folks for the past 4 weeks. So keep going. Awesome job. Okay, let's talk to Jane. She's got one. When I am able to do more things, I notice that a lot of self-doubt comes up, and that I worry about my future a lot. It feels like this wants to hold me back. Do you have some advice? Your answer is in your question, actually, Jane. That third thing. Oh no, that second sentence there. It feels like it wants to hold me back. That's exactly what it's doing. Yeah. Your nervous system is throwing fears and doubts your way because it wants to hold you back from doing the things that you want, because for whatever reason, it's trying to protect you from doing those things because it's afraid of going out of its comfort zone again, right? And so we need to have a little bit of a conversation with our nervous system when those fears and those doubts come up and say, listen, Thanks for the concern. I appreciate it. I know you're trying to protect me, and you're trying to scare me as your form of protecting me so I don't go out and do those things that I want to do. Appreciate the suggestion. I really do. I understand the sentiment behind it. I know there's no ill will for you throwing these thoughts at me. I know you're just trying to protect me from what can be seen as a cold and harsh world out there. I'm going to go out there anyways, nervous system, and we're going to be all right. Just got to let me do it. And then you go and you do it. And you do that consistently. And that voice gets quieter and quieter over time when you can show it through consistency and proof that the world is not a scary place and that you do know and understand how to approach it in a healthy way and not a dysregulated way like we once did in the past. Okay? Hope that makes sense. I speak from experience. That voice was loud for me when I was reintegrating back into life. I had a lot of intrusive thoughts, right? That scared the crap out of me whenever I tried to reintegrate into the world, which made me question, is this even a safe place to be in at one point, right? So and a lot of conversations were had, for sure, with my nervous system, right? Very good. Excellent. Ruthie asks, was making good progress with the program, but now had bad COVID for 1 month. Cough and weakness. Was wondering best tips to recover from COVID. Yeah, COVID's a gnarly one. That's the thing. It will use quite a bit of capacity to get through COVID. I'm not going to lie. It does require quite a bit of capacity. And then after COVID, kind of what you want to do is give your body maybe a week or two to rest and recharge, right? To start building itself back up and start regathering resources again. Okay. And then after that, you want to slowly reintegrate back into life. Even if you feel like you're not 100% ready, that's actually totally fine. Because what I find for people sometimes, what they could be doing a little bit wrong is that they'll get COVID, and then after COVID, they'll rest for a couple weeks. But because their symptoms haven't fully lifted after those couple weeks, they think I'm not fully ready to start reintegrating back into my life. I should probably rest a little bit more. And remember that window of tolerance that I talked about earlier. You don't want to over rest as well, because that can get you in kind of a state of a plateau. Because when you over rest and you wait until you're 100% ready, you could be waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks, if not months and months and months and months. So don't wait too long, and you don't have to wait until you're 100% ready or symptom free, or maybe you're not 100% back to your previous baseline before. That's all right. You got to start somewhere, right? That's where we'll start. Hope that makes sense. Okay. Jackie, I love you too, my friend. Appreciate that. Thank you, Jane. Thank you. You are so kind as well. All right. Let's see here. This question's a little bit confusing, Jackie. Let me try and read it to make sure I understand it correctly, okay? Emotions. Your partner left. I see. Okay, I understand. So your partner left, which has left you distraught. Fair, to be honest. Okay, I'm not going to blame you for feeling that way. Sent my health way down, probably because it was a big emotional event. Again, fair. You're human. I'm not going to judge you for that either, right? I think most of us would be emotionally distraught, even just for a little bit, at least, amount of time if the partner left. Should I be trying to keep my grief of him going neutral? So this is a great example of gray area here as well. You want to acknowledge the grief when it comes up, Jackie. You want to process that grief, right? So Don't ignore it. Don't suppress it. Allow it to be there, right? And acknowledge it. And that's fine. And feel what you need to feel. But if it gets to the point where we're like crying all day, or like we're getting into levels of overwhelm when we're feeling that grief and it gets a little bit too much, at that point you want to lean a little bit more into some distraction to get your mind off of that a little bit. And then we can come back to it at a later time and work on that a little bit more. It's very similar actually to going to the gym, right? You go to the gym, you exercise, you got to take a little bit of a break where you take 1 or 2 days off, allow your system to kind of build back up, and then you go back into the gym after that and you exercise again, you get stronger, right? It's the same thing with emotions, especially the emotions of sadness, depression, or grief, right? Acknowledge it, feel what you need to feel, exercise building your capacity for feeling that emotion. When it gets a little bit overwhelming or just too uncomfortable to where you feel like you can't handle it anymore, lean towards a little bit of distraction, take a little bit of a temporary break. And when you feel like you've had enough of a break, when those emotions come back up, you can go ahead and work through those things again, little by little, consistency, and it gets better, right? Okay. Hope that helps. Very good. I've been getting a little sore throat action. This usually happens quite commonly when the weather changes for me in Florida, because we're so used to like 80, 90 degree weather here in Central Florida. This week, for whatever reason, it just dropped to like the 30s, 40s, and 50s at night. And it's such an extreme temperature shift, it causes the body to have to adapt quite quickly to those temperature changes, in which my body chooses to respond in the form of feeling a little bit more lethargic and having a sore throat. I'll feel that for a few days, some headache as well, probably. I've gotten a couple headaches in the past few days, but then after that, my body and my system starts to recalibrate and adapt, right? So even normal people go through this, you guys. Even normal people do. Okay. Ariel, any topics you want to bring up if we don't have any more questions so far? Because it doesn't look like we do at the moment. Any topics, anything?
It looks like there's one question. I will say it directly states psych meds. I don't know if I want to talk about psych meds, but I just wanted to mention that regardless what position you're coming from into recovery, of what solutions you do or don't have to necessarily aid your system with as well, you can absolutely still get better. So these externals that sometimes we do need in our lives, it's okay. You know, you can get better with or without those types of things. It doesn't have an impact. What has an impact is the mindset behind it, the intention behind it, and the signals that we're sending to our nervous system, whether it's this is safe and helpful, or I don't like this and this isn't helpful. So I just wanted to mention that. That was a huge question I had before entering recovery is, you know, given that I have to, you know, do certain things outside of nervous system work exclusively, can I get better? You know, and the answer was yes.
Awesome. 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 Jackie says, thank you to Ariel. Really, really appreciate you. You know, going through something like this, you learn a lot of lessons. You learn a lot about yourself, and it can be a very uncomfortable process going through something like this, as most change does come with growth involved, and growth involved comes with the territory of feeling uncomfortable. But it's how we perceive that discomfort, right? Perception is really important. How you view situations. You never know how things could turn out because of something that you've gone through that you didn't expect or want to go through, right? This illness has proven to be one of the biggest benefits of my life. It's changed me as a person. If I never got sick, I don't know where I'd be. I'd probably be running out somewhere, being dysregulated, causing some kind of chaos, right? My dad actually told me this story about perspective yesterday. He told me it a long time ago, but he told me again. And I just remembered it. I thought it was a great story. So it's probably an older story, but it's a good one. And he talks about these people that work on a farm that have a horse, right? And they use the horse to work through the agriculture and stuff like that. It's how they earn their living, with, um, using the horse, right? And then one day, the horse runs away, right? And so then the neighbors, they see that the horse runs away for a week or whatever it is, and they say, "Oh no, what a terrible situation. I feel so bad for them. That was their only means to make a living," right? Um, that horse was so important to how they make their living, and now they don't have anything to do. What an awful situation. Well, come a week later, the horse comes back with another horse, right? So then the neighbors are like, wow, they are the luckiest people in the world. Look at that. Now they don't just have one horse, they have two horses now, so they can do double the work, right? And now they can earn even more because of that. And you fast forward a little bit with time, and one of the owners of the horse tries to ride the new horse, right? The second one that came along. It's a little bit of a wilder horse, and ends up breaking his leg because it's a wild horse, right? You never know what's going to happen. So he ends up breaking his leg. And then the neighbors say, "Oh, what a terribly unfortunate situation. This person, broke their leg. Now they can't walk. Now they can't do this and that." Fast forward a little bit. This person has a broken leg, and a war starts in their country, right? And so people are looking to recruit soldiers, able-bodied individuals, to be able to help fight the war. Because the dude broke his leg, they skipped over him and they went to the next house, right? So then the neighbors, again, they come back in and say, "Oh, he's so lucky," right? Because he broke his leg. They skipped over him, so now he doesn't have to fight the war and risk his life, and he can be there for his family, right? And I think my dad asked me, what's the moral of the story? Well, the moral of the story is it's all perception. Whatever you're going through, you never know what's going to happen. You never know if it's bad or good. That's the thing, and that's all perceived, right? In the beginning of my journey, I thought my illness, my condition, my sickness was the worst thing in the world. That was my perception because of the immediate situation, because I didn't know how things were going to play out. Fast forward, I look back, it's like the best thing that's ever happened to me as well. You never know where this thing can take you, right? It's so easy to get caught up in making the automatic assumption that the only way this thing can take you is down. It might be the biggest springboard of your life and you don't even know it, but you're just going on a little bit of a journey to get there. And the journey might be completely worth it as well. So there's beauty in the illness, right? And the condition as well. So cool story.
I like that story, Junior.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I relate to that experience too of being able to draw from things. And I used to think that if I were to say, "Oh, I benefited because of this or that," it would mean that I deserved what I went through, or it was for a reason or something. But there's nothing wrong with saying, this thing that I went through that I perceived as absolutely horrible at one point in time has benefited me and served me in so many ways presently. And looking back and even just being present with myself. So yeah, it's something that while I was going through it, when I heard people say that, I'll be honest, when I heard you say that, I thought you were full crap, Junior. I was like, this guy he's on something. Something's going on here. He's crazy. But even looking at the parts of myself that, having been ill and going through recovery has put in front of me to examine and to improve and to break cycles of in my family and so on and so forth. It's inspirational to me interpersonally, So yeah, I definitely draw from having been ill, and I look back and I'm like, what else would have brought these things to my attention? Because I personally didn't have somebody saying, "Hey, here's something you should look at," or "Let me teach you how to cope with this," or "Do this or do that." And in the process, I've learned how to do those things for myself and really understand what true, interdependence is, as opposed to trying to always be so independent. So yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of learning lessons, a lot of wisdom to be found out of this condition. I find some of the wisest people I've ever met were people who went through some of the hardest things, right? I used to often question in the past why bad things happen to good people, because you see that sometimes, right? And I come to the realization that I don't think it's just a matter of the universe or the world being cruel to people who are inherently good, because sometimes with good people, they deserve a little bit of a level up. But in order to get there, you have to be tested on, yes, you're good, but are you strong as well, right? And then you get tested on your strength, mentally, emotionally. Um, you know, they test your resolve and the things that you can go through to see if you're ready for the next level. It might not, and that really changed my perspective on why bad things happen to good people. You actually might be getting set up for success. You actually just probably have to go through something to learn some lessons, to build some aspects of your character in order for you to receive those blessings. And when you ultimately get there, you'll be able to handle it because you had the tools, because you learned what you needed to learn by going through what you needed to go through. And that was absolutely the case for myself. So, and I think I can speak for all the coaches when I say that, to be honest. You've all got another one. Keep posting questions, guys. We got about 15 minutes, right? I don't want to keep answering the same questions from the same folks over and over and over again. Because I find that if you guys don't ask questions, the same people will ask the same questions over and over and over again, right? All right. What is this? Structural issues and EDS. The muscles inside my head, scalp, and the area from my neck to face get tense. There are times when even eating can cause this. I'm wondering if this would be considered as a crash or an adaptation period. The same with weather changes that increases POTS symptoms. No, I think it's important to understand the difference between a crash and an adjustment period. Guys, when you crash, you are incapacitated. That's the thing. Like, you can't speak. Like, you need to get like carried to the bathroom. Like, you need to get like additional assistance in terms of like helping drink water or even sitting up. Like, a crash is extremely debilitating. If you're just having symptoms where um you know, yes, it's noticeable, it's uncomfortable, then no, that's not a crash, that's just an adjustment period. All right, I hope that helps. And we will bring Ariel back because
Back.
she
My
awesome.
internet still did something, but I'm back, you guys.
Did something. We were just talking about the difference between a crash and an adjustment period and how crashes are extremely debilitating, like to the point people can't like
Do
talk or
anything.
eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not where you are, people. Okay. Okay. Excellent, people. Now, I spoke about people asking the same questions over and over again. We have a little bit of a frustrated individual in the comments saying, I am asking these same questions, but you won't address some of them. Yes, I pick and choose sometimes the thing I choose to address, and then choose things that I choose to not address, because some things are appropriate that I'm able to address, and some things require me to actively choose not to as well, because we have certain limitations. I'm not a medical professional. Again, I am not a doctor. I can't speak about medications. I can't speak about supplementation and anything that makes me liable. So yes, I'm picking and choosing the things that are appropriate for us to talk about, because I'm trying to safeguard and protect this community so we can focus on speaking on the right things, right? And if you have a little bit more of a advanced question or something that you want to speak one-on-one, joining the program is a great option, and we can really get into it if you want to discuss it. But probably not if I didn't choose your question, it's probably not the appropriate time and place to discuss something in a public generalized setting where there's a lot of vulnerable people on the call that could easily get triggered. Understand? Okay. There's a time and place for everything that's appropriate. All right? Excellent. Don't worry about that, Zeus. Okay? All right. Let's see here. Tony, like I said, I can't directly advise against medications and supplementations, but here's what I can say about them. In terms of liability, I can't tell you to or to not take medication or supplementation, because that would be me telling you to do something in terms of that. But I can speak on my own experience as well. And Tony, you expressed here in your question, I'm afraid to take pills, not even just medication. It can be some supplements. Why would I be afraid to take something that may help me, even if it's just a little bit? Right? I had this too, Tony, because if it wasn't me taking every medication and supplement around the world, then I would swing to the other extreme and be afraid to take anything at one point as well. There's a gray area and a balance that I found for my own recovery, where if I would get like a headache and it would be going into migraine territory, I would take a headache medicine, and it actually would help too. Because yes, whilst this starts with the brain, you can't heal everything with the mind. That's the thing. That's just not how this works. This is a mind-body, multifaceted condition, right? And so you want to help out your physical body a little bit whilst working on your mental and emotional mind too, okay? So for me, brain retraining worked for the most part, but if I'm going into migraine territory, I had to take something to give me a little bit of relief, right? It's all about that balance, taking care of your physical body whilst taking care of your mind too. You can't white knuckle through the whole thing just using your mind. That's just silly at that point, right? And I came to that realization myself too, that I was being silly, because every time I had a migraine, I would try to brain retrain it away, only using my mind. I'm never going to take medication. I'm never going to do this. I'm just going to only use my mind to heal myself. Well, that's not really how that works, right? It's mind-body thing. Okay. Okay. I hope that helps here. Here we go. We got Jackie. You want to take this one, Ariel? Let's see.
Sure. It says, what about activities like walking when you cannot eat enough or eat healthy food because you have MCAS, which is mast cell activation syndrome? That's something that I had suspected MCAS, and that's something that I went through at one point in time where I was very restricted, very limited on what I was eating. I had actually the same kind of concern or fear. And what I had to realize is we don't start by just jumping up and going for a 30-minute walk. This happens gradually. So for me, I was at the point where it wasn't comfortable, nor was it appropriate for me to get up and just start going for very long walks. It was a process where I started with, say, like a 1 to 3 minute walk. And you bet, if I started feeling like I was malnourished or extremely lightheaded, or some of the other things that could happen, if that level of overwhelm of those things was starting to get to a tipping point, I would pull back. So this isn't about pushing. This isn't about grading out. I have to start at a certain point and I must go more next time and next time and next time. This really is based off of, where your personal nervous system is at amongst this kind of activity expansion. So this is something where taking it easy on yourself and not expecting, I must go for long walks with this. And also the linking of, assuming that if I'm not eating enough, that means that I can't do any physical activity. I found for me, when I actually started doing a little bit of physical activity, my appetite started kicking in a little bit. That's just my personal experience. These things tend to go hand in hand. So it is quite possible, especially if you just start small.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I totally agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. with there, and there's a balance of it as well, right? Like I would never tell anybody who is malnourished to like go for a 5 mile run. That would just be irresponsible for me as a coach. But at the same time, you know, maybe not intaking enough foods because we have a sensitivity, it doesn't mean you have to completely write off the fact that you're not allowed to do anything in terms of movement, because that's really black and white too. So I totally agree with what you said there, Ariel. I do. Okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and take this question off the board. And Zeus says, truly appreciate both of you doing what you're doing. We appreciate you too. Thank you, Zeus. Thank you so much.
Oh, I think Tony clarified a little bit. Tony says,
oh, here we go. What did he say?
He says, oh, I'm sorry. I know you can't say anything about medication. I guess my question is just the anxiety toward taking things. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this is something where, for me, I had the same thing. I had a high level of anxiety toward taking medications, toward taking supplements, toward relying on external resources for myself, you know. And for me, that came down to almost like a strength, weakness feeling, a pride issue, where I had to, again, gray it out and say, yes, I have some anxiety, although the next indicated step for me to do is to say, like Junior expressed, I would do the same thing for myself. If I'm headed towards a migraine and it is amping up, I'm taking some medication. That's where I was at, you know, and graying that out and saying, now, do I have to do that every time it feels like I'm starting to have a headache? No, you know, but there are specific times that I would do that. And there were times that I wouldn't do that, where I felt that I was able to respond a little different to it. So yeah, that anxiety will be there. You know, that's not something that we can just acknowledge and poof, it disappears. This is something that for me, I had to move forward with it despite the anxiety sometimes, whether that was relying on an external or not relying on an external. The point is regardless what it is, sometimes we do have to, you know, instill some courage and walk through a bit of that anxiety while it's manageable.
And you know what I had to do, Ariel, to build myself up for that? Because I was terrified of taking things, right? I had to take like a Tylenol pill or something. I literally had to cut it in like a tenth, and I would have like this little bit of the medication, and I would take it, see if I would react. But I didn't, obviously, but I was so scared I had to start that small, right? So it's fine if you have to start that small, because that's something that I had to do as well. And then I eventually ended up building my way back up to the regular recommended adult dosage, and it helped. It helped for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We got Johnny in the house. Johnny in the house. Meditation, somatic tracking, and breath work reduced my symptoms like inner restlessness and my fight-flight mode, but at the same time it creates symptoms like tension headache. Am I doing something wrong? No, I don't think so. This is a very clear example of cause and effect, right? Because what you're doing is, let me read this a little bit more. You experience inner restlessness and fight and flight, right? Inner restlessness, fight and flight, that's anxiety, right? That's anxiety and inner chaos. And anxiety and inner chaos, you want to counterbalance it with its direct opposite. So anxiety and inner chaos would be counterbalanced with peace and a sense of calm. So did you do exercises that exemplify peace and a sense of calm? Yeah. Meditation and breath work. Yeah. They do elicit counterbalancing emotions of peace and a sense of calm, which should make your anxiety and inner chaos go away. If you're focusing really hard and using your brain and your level of thought at a really high level to get to that place of meditation and tracking and breath work, you'll probably get a headache if you focus on it a little bit too hard, which is why now that I'm reading your question, it actually makes total sense here. Meditation, somatic tracking, and breath work reduce my symptoms like inner restlessness and fight or flight, but at the same time, it creates symptoms like a tension headache. Yeah. Did I do something wrong? No, I don't think you did anything wrong. What I would say changing a little bit, I wouldn't change anything you're doing in terms of meditation, somatic tracking, and breath work. Try changing on how hard you're mentally focusing on trying to get that done, right? Like tone that down a little bit, and it will either greatly reduce or completely eliminate those tension headaches afterwards, because you're probably doing that like really intensely and you're not even realizing or having the awareness that you're doing it at as intense of a level as you are. So try that. That should probably help, right? Okay. Let's see here. Amira asks, I'm not afraid of my symptoms and more in freeze response. Any advice? A little vague. Amira, I'm going to need a little more context on that. I don't really know what you're trying to ask here. I'm just going to be honest. Okay. All right. So, and with that, holy crap, I just looked at the time. We're out of time, Ariel. What the heck? I was peeking at the clock. All right, we can wrap this one up, folks. Well, it was good seeing everybody. Listen, if you are in the United States and you celebrate American Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. Okay? Spend time with your friends, your family, your loved ones, and if you don't have anybody like that around you, spend time in communities. Just make sure that you don't feel alone in these times as well. If you are within our community, then continue to post, share your wins inside the community as well. This can be a great time to slow down a little bit, reflect on all the things that we were able to do this year, all the changes and things that we were able to kind of make better for ourselves this year as well. Okay. You guys have been doing a wonderful job. This community is so incredible. It really is. Thank you guys for continuing to come on here, support each other, and just be a great example for one another on what real health and responding well looks like. Okay. And anything else, Ariel, before I let these folks go?
No, just thanks for showing up, you guys. This is what makes everything move forward and gets us all better. So thank you for coming.
Excellent. You guys have a great rest of the day, the morning, the evening, wherever you are located. We'll see you again very soon. And again, happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays. Okay? Take care of yourselves, everybody. Bye-bye.